Our top story today is Hurricane Ian, and Ian is quickly intensifying. The National Hurricane Center says Ian has grown Wednesday morning into a Category 4 hurricane, as is very near reaching Category 5, the highest status reserved for storms with maximum sustained winds of at least 158 miles per hour. It's expected to make landfall somewhere along Florida's southwest coast early Wednesday afternoon. Here's how residents are preparing.
Your time to evacuate is coming to an end.
An urgent warning from Florida's governor, imploring residents to get to higher ground as Hurricane Ian barrels toward the state.
Hey, you're in a mandatory evacuation.
More than 2.5 million people are under evacuation orders along the southwest coast, but officials are telling all Florida residents to brace for impact.
There's also potential for flash flooding and river flooding with 10 to 20 inches across central and northeast Florida.
Ian caused a nationwide blackout after rolling through Cuba Tuesday, and thousands of utility workers are standing by across Florida to help deal with potential power outages.
We also have line workers and linemen and line women coming from 27 other states. They're positioned at 24 different locations throughout the state.
Rains from the outer bands of the hurricane are already whipping southern Florida, and at least 2 possible tornadoes caused damage Tuesday night. Schools, supermarkets, and theme parks across the state have announced closures as the window for people to board up and head out is coming to a close.
We cannot send first responders into harm's way because you decided not to leave.
Well, as it was mentioned there, Hurricane Ian tore through parts of Cuba on Tuesday as a major hurricane. The storm knocked out power to the entire country of Cuba, leaving millions without electricity. Havana, Cuba residents walked the streets in complete darkness, illuminated only by the headlights of passing cars. Ian made landfall Tuesday as a Category 3 storm in Cuba's Pinar del Rio province, where at least 50,000 people were evacuated. The storm flooded streets, damaged homes, and ferocious winds brought down trees. As of Wednesday morning, at least 2 deaths have been reported due to the storm. And Hurricane Fiona hit the Turks and Caicos last week. While it mostly spared the storm's wrath, it did cause some damage. Our One Caribbean News' DeAndre Hamilton has a status update on the relief efforts in the TCI.
When Hurricane Fiona hit the Turks and Caicos Islands on Tuesday, September 20th, the governor and premier of the islands were out of the country. However, the leaders have now returned home and are assessing the damages of the hurricane to get operations on the island back to normal. Governor of the Turks and Caicos, Nigel Dakin, on Saturday, September 24th, reported that all airports, ferries, and shipping lines are open and digital communications, for the most part, have been re-established across the islands. Dakin noted that the causeway between North and Middle Caicos requires long-term work, and Middle Caicos is having electricity issues as several poles are down on the island. In the country's capital, Grand Turk, electricity is back for all critical infrastructure. Approximately 94% of customers in the Turks and Caicos have electricity restored following the passing of the hurricane, according to Fortis TCI. Though the Turks and Caicos was not severely impacted, Governor Dakin encouraged residents to prepare for a potential second hit. In a statement Friday, Premier Washington Mizik expressed thanks to God for guiding his country through the Category 3 hurricane, noting that it highlighted the need to always be prepared.
First, I express collective thanks to God Almighty on behalf of all the Turks and Caicos Islands for His grace and mercies to our homeland, and for the fact that there has not been a single loss of human life from what turned out to be a very powerful storm, despite early predictions. The lessons learned highlights the unpredictable nature of hurricanes and the necessity to always be ready. The progress made by the Turks and Caicos Islands team, based on lessons learned from the 2017 hurricanes, have been impressive.
DeAndre Hamilton reporting for One Caribbean News.
All right, thanks so much, DeAndre. Well, meantime, provisions have been made in Trinidad and Tobago's 2023 budget for healthcare workers to get a special payment for their service to the country over the past 2 years during the COVID pandemic. Prime Minister of Finance Colm Imbert made the announcement during his budget presentation, saying that more than 20,000 workers would share in the 210 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars, the equivalent of 30.7 million US dollars. The payment is a fulfillment of a promise by Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley to reward healthcare workers for their dedication during the pandemic.
I wish also to acknowledge the sacrifices of health sector workers whose call to public duty ensured that proper and adequate care was always given to all those who fell under their charge and responsibility, although they worked in direct contact with the virus. Accordingly, it is a fitting tribute to their exemplary and heroic performance that I have acted on the instructions of the Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, to allocate the sum of $210 million in the estimates of expenditure for fiscal 2023 as a special payment to be distributed to health workers in Trinidad and Tobago. This will involve ex gratia payments to over 20,000 health workers.
Now, Minister Imbert did not give details of how the money would be distributed. Meanwhile, he said Trinidad and Tobago has seen some economic recovery since the downturn caused by the COVID pandemic, and more growth is expected this year.
But the preliminary second quarter data is very encouraging, and our economy is projected to recover with real GDP growth of 2% for the full year. And within this growth, real progress is being observed in several non-energy areas of the economy.